Hello folks, today we take a look at a teeny tiny little case with lots to offer. Hello and welcome back to Gadget Joe, and today we have another case in for a review, and this time it's from ANTEC with their CX60M ARGB. It's a micro ATX case that is part of their newest lineup, and it has some pretty impressive little features. The biggest selling point of it all is the low price point too. These can be picked up for around the £60 to £65 price mark currently, and they come in both black or white. There are obviously much cheaper cases on the market still, but ANTEC have continuously been stepping up their game when it comes to design and implementations, as we've seen throughout the years, even right here on the Gadget Joe channel. The value with these cases come in the details, such as that large panoramic view from both those glass panels, the included ARGB fans, and a few little extra touches to make building in the CX60M ARGB that little bit easier. So with that in mind, let's get into the review and see what my findings of this case are. I'll explore the case itself, the specifications, dimensions and support alongside the build quality, and then outline the pros and cons alongside my final thoughts at the end of this video. The CX60M ARGB is, as discussed earlier, a micro ATX case, meaning it has support inside for mounting a micro ATX board or even the smaller ITX boards. If you have a standard sized ATX motherboard, then you're going to want to give this one a miss. It's a pretty compact case too, and it's not too far from being a cube shape. It sits at 354mm in height, 275mm in width and 346mm in depth. It is a bit wider than your standard case, but that's thanks to the dual chamber design, which we'll touch upon in a moment. One thing I noticed about this case upon taking it out of the box is how unbelievably light it is. I was convinced that the glass panels were still in the box, as it was just so light even considering it's using a steel chassis design and tempered glass. The overall weight is just 4.45 kilograms. After I finished being amazed at the lightweight of the case, throwing it around and almost pulling a Linus, I put it back down and pretended that never happened and got to breaking it down. Starting with the exterior, we see a nice modern looking fish tank design with two full length tempered glass panels on the front and side. The panels have a relatively thick bezel going along the three sides, which are effective in covering up the seams and connectors to give a cleaner aesthetic overall. On the opposite side, we have a large ventilated panel. It's very rare that you see panels with this level of ventilation on them. We're talking almost edge to edge minus a little thin frame, and the purpose of this is to maximise airflow being brought into the case, which is good to see on a glass panel case design. On the rear is a relatively standard layout, albeit slightly wider due to its design. It has ventilation everywhere, which is a common theme to this case. You can start to get an idea of the amount of space with the dual chamber design of the CX60M here, with a side mounted power supply and large space above it. So now we turn our attention to the internals. Remove these two thumb screws here to remove the rear panel. Here we can see the vast amount of ventilation I mentioned earlier. One thing I will say is the panel does have a lot of flex to it. Inside the case at the rear we can see that vast amount of space thanks to the dual chamber design. 95mm of usable space in fact. There's loads of room for your power supply and cable management, or for stuffing the cables in out of the way behind your motherboard tray. Cables are routed along the left, slightly smaller 45mm channel with lots of tie down points and some included velcro straps. This board here is for the top I/O. This panel right here is for mounting your hard drives onto. This can hold either one 3.5-inch drive or two 2.5-inch drives, and it's completely removable too via these two screws here if you don't want it in place, or alternatively for easier installation. You do get an included accessories box here and a little user manual inside. Let's move to the business side now. These glass panels are super easy to remove and completely toolless. Just put your finger behind this tab at the top and pop the panel away. This glass panel is completely 100% transparent with no tint in here, and then it features the black free-edge trim we mentioned earlier. The glass is super light and also super thin too. The access inside the case is now open to do what you need to do. However, if you want even more access, you can remove the front panel too in the same way. Pull it away and now you have a large amount of open space to work in. This is where I noticed that the lightweight design is mostly due to thin metal. It has a little bit of a flex at the top. In fact, the whole case can easily twist around, which makes it so light. However, that's without a system in, and those glass panels in place, which will drastically improve the structure of the entire case. Now we have a very open space to work in, and we can now see what this case has to offer. It comes with 3 included 120mm fans, 2 of them on the bottom of the case to pull cold air through the bottom and bring it up into the case. The rear mounted fan then works to exhaust the now warm air out of the case. The motherboard tray sits proudly forward in the CX60M, allowing it to have the dual chamber design. It's got a very large rear cutout behind the motherboard and lots of open spaces for cable management. Some side mounted holes with rubber grommets are on the side wall too, which helps to keep it looking clean. To the right of the motherboard tray is some mounting space for an additional 2.5-inch drive for a total of up to 3 2.5-inch drive supports in this case. Being a smaller case means it's limited in terms of additional fans and radiator support, but there is space at the top for an additional 2 120mm fans and even up to a 240mm radiator here too, which has a magnetic dust filter for dust protection on the top too. Which brings us on to the included I/O of a CX60M. We have a large power switch, reset switch, 3.5mm audio port, 2 USB 3 ports, and a USB Type-C Gen 3.2 port. And that's pretty much the case in general. Building in the CX60M was super simple thanks to that open plan, pillarless design you get when removing the 2 glass panels. All the holes for cable routing are nicely thought out and make cabling very easy. The rubber grommets, however, are super flimsy, and you'll need to be careful with those, as I nearly ripped one out when routing a 24-pin into place. But then I do have giant sausage fingers, so that might be a little bit of user error at the same time. Cable management overall is super accessible and easy to do with that large 95mm chamber at the rear. There was loads of space to route cables and organise them efficiently and keep them in check. There's plenty of cable tie points scattered across the case too to keep everything nice and tight in place. The CX60M has a surprising amount of support for larger CPU coolers and graphics cards, so I use these components to test that theory. I'm using a large tower style air cooler and it fits perfectly. There's space for up to 165mm for CPU coolers, so most coolers on the market should fit in nicely. I used a 2080 Super for the graphics card. It's quite a chunky card, but mostly it's one of the longer cards that I own, and it too fits in just nicely with support for up to 325mm for graphics cards in here. Naturally, with it being a smaller micro ATX case, it will struggle with even larger cards. Theoretically, you could fit a triple slot card in there, but you're going to be cutting it fine. It'll be butting right up to those bottom fans, and whilst you could remove them, you're going to be sacrificing some very beneficial airflow, which is much needed on a glass panel case. Overall, it's a very nice case to build in actually, and some of the concerns I had with that flimsy structure went away with a system in place. Once all your components are in, it's super solid and gives it a little bit of substantiality to the whole thing. With that in mind, it's time to talk about the pros and cons of the ANTEC CX60M and finally offer my conclusion. Starting with the pros. It's a very attractive case, its small size and full-size glass panels and somewhat simplified design make it a standout piece which would look good in most settings. They can come in white too, so if you have an all white or a lighter aesthetic, it'll fit in nicely there too. It's super lightweight, like hard to explain just how light it is, even with the glass panels included. I've worked on hundreds of cases and I can tell you from experience that working on big, heavy cases can be a pain at times. So this is very welcome and means that even with a system built in, it's going to be easy to move around or mount on a shelf. There is a huge amount of workable space. Building in it was actually pretty fun, with lots of well-placed cable routing holes and extra space for hiding said cables. The pillarless design made getting in there with screwdrivers and installing components a doddle. Those included fans are super silent, but push a surprisingly decent amount of air around. My system kept nice and cool whilst playing games for an extended amount of time too, which is a nice thing to see on a glass panel fish tank style case. The fans are, as you can see, ARGB fans too, so you can change the colour of them to match your system and overall aesthetic too. The toolless design with those glass panels is nice to see too. When you've got a case with a nice sleek glass front like these ones, you don't want random thumb screws sticking out at the rear to ruin the look. Plus, it makes its access super simple too for maintenance and cleaning. It's pretty cheap too. As I mentioned at the start of the video, you can pick these up for around the £60 to £70 price point, which puts it at a more affordable price point in a market where some cases can demand prices well upwards into the hundreds. And that brings me on to the cons. It's a super lightweight case, which I know I just said was a pro, but it also has its cons. It's super lightweight because the materials are pretty thin. Again, that has positives and negatives. It makes it easier to produce and easier to move around, but it also makes it very flexible. It's not a strong case at all, as I found out when being able to twist the entire case. But I guess for a price point, you could argue it's getting what you pay for, but I like my cases to feel a bit more solid. As a counter argument to that last point, I guess it saves itself when a system is built in. It becomes rock solid, so the issues do go away. Those rubber grommets could do with being just a little bit thicker. They are certainly functional, but they are also so thin that they don't really hold themselves into place when you're moving the things around. And that's pretty much it for the cons. Both of them go down to the materials used. Now, I won't go out and say that this is a bad quality case. I really don't want people to think that. Just because it's flexible and uses thin materials doesn't necessarily mean it's bad quality, because it certainly isn't. It's a well thought out case that looks attractive, is easy to work in, and it's easy to build in. It's lightweight and easy to maneuver, and it comes included with 3 ARGB fans too, making it a very strong and solid offering. Overall, I think it's a fantastic little case. It's definitely not going to break the market, as it's hard to do that nowadays, especially for this sort of price point when there are literally hundreds of similar cases available too. But I don't think ANTEC are intending for the CX60M to do that. It's just another very solid option from ANTEC if you want a fish tank style case with some nice little additions to it, with the included fans, lightweight design and impressive space utilization for a good price point. I think for that price point, I would say this is extremely good value. You get a lot of case for your money. It looks fantastic, is super practical, and will look great in any home or office setup. As always, I will leave a link in the description down below if you wish to grab one yourself in both black or white. Once you're down there, don't forget to click like and subscribe if you haven't already. It only takes a few seconds and massively helps me grow this channel. With all that said and done, I'm done for now, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.